Money is the mental sickness that we all ignore. On some level, you've ignored it, I've ignored it, they've ignored it, we've all ignored it to some extent on some level. When you think about this, money is a mental illness from the perspective of, number one, what is it? What is an illness? An illness is either a sickness, a disease, or an addiction. And when you think about the average person in this country, in terms of statistically, can they afford an emergency fund? The average person in this country, 76% of people to be exact, cannot afford a $400 emergency fund. Now, when you think about how much money people make across all different cultures, backgrounds, zip codes, and to say that 76% of people can't afford a $400 emergency communicates that this is an addiction. This is an addiction that people are addicted to different things, because think about this. When people are on drugs, they use all of their money or most of their money for drugs. Like, that is an addiction, and we can clearly see that. We can clearly see that if somebody has some type of drug habit and they get money, that they're going to use that money to go support their habit. Now, we clearly see that. Like, that's black and white. We get it. We understand it. And the same thing holds true when it comes to 76% of people, specifically in this country, in the U.S., they can't afford a $400 emergency. Now, I want you to hear me out. Like, I'm not trying to degrade you or talk down on you, or because I've been there before. Like, I was in that 76% at one point in time in my life. So I'm not trying to talk to you as somebody who's talking down to you. What I'm saying is, when it comes to a mental illness, it's very important for us to treat money as such, because when it comes to an addiction, people might have different addictions, but they all support their addiction the same way. They support their addiction with money. And so when we think about, somebody might have a drug problem, somebody might be addicted to sex, somebody might be addicted to alcohol, some people might be addicted to food, some people might be addicted to shopping, some people might be addicted to all different things that we can actually name. But you think about it, the one common thing that all of those things have in common is money. You have to purchase those things. It's something that you can exchange whatever your addiction is for money. And it's like, that money is truly a mental illness from the perspective that is something that we ignore, because most of us either have it, we've seen it, or we just recently escaped it. And when we start treating money like a mental illness, then we start looking at how people spend money in a different way. And we start looking at how we spend money in a different way, because sometimes people don't realize that anything that somebody is addicted to, or any type of like mental illness that somebody has, it's something that was a deeper root that was never addressed. People typically have mental illnesses because it didn't start off that way. It started off like them having just this small problem. The problem got ignored. Then it just recently grown like bigger and bigger to the point where it just overtook them, and they had a mental breakdown, which now turned into the form of a mental illness. And we do not look at money in the exact same way. But if we did, so many things would change, not just in our lives, but also how we approach people and how we even judge people based on what they do with money. So I want to just encourage you and even bring some awareness to money being a mental issue that so many people that we ignore. And if we treat it as a mental illness, we'll approach people different, and we will even be a little bit more responsible with it, and we will celebrate people in a different way, because sometimes we don't realize that we celebrate people that have a lot of money, and it's not so much that the people who don't have money have a mental illness. It's something that a lot of us share in, because a lot of people that have a lot of money, they also have mental money illnesses, if you will, as well. It just plays out a little bit different. And sometimes we actually put a lot of pressure on people to maintain a certain status so that they can continue to impress us. It's crazy how society works, because so often the people with money spend most of their money trying to impress people who don't have it and convince them that they do have it, from the perspective that people spend money they don't have to impress people that they don't know and don't like on things that they really cannot afford. And This happens on a continual basis. One of the most sacred unions, one of the most sacred gifts, one of the best things that people can ever experience in this lifetime is marriage. And you think about the one thing that tears marriages apart more than anything else is money. Think about that. More than anything else is money. And if marriage is one of the most sacred things that we can have, but the thing that tears it apart, the number one thing to be exact that tears it apart is money, then money stands to be something that we take a closer look at, and we look at it as something that could be a weapon. Now, it could be a weapon that protects us, but it can also be a weapon that destroys us. And it's all about how we view it, how we use it, and also how we respect it. And sometimes we tend to take money and we put it in a category that it does not deserve to be. Money is not a god. Money is not something that you should worship. Money is not something that you should idolize. Money is not oxygen. Money can never save you directly. Now, money can save you indirectly by paying for oxygen. You know, if you think about somebody have an oxygen machine. So money can save you indirectly, but money itself, it does not have any inherent value except the value that we place on it. And sometimes we make money out to be this God that it's not. And it's not. It's just a tool. And sometimes we misuse the tool and we start to idolize money in a way and worship money in a way that it was never designed to be. However, it's something that is very, very important for us to respect and have a different perspective. And you think about just how dysfunctional our relationship really is with money. Not only is money the number one cause of divorce, but money is the number one thing that people publicly act like they care about the least. I want you to hear that for a minute. Money is the number one thing people publicly act like they care about the least. What do I mean by that? I think about, whether it's white people, black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, it doesn't matter. Right now, you can Google people who making it rain. Maybe it's a different form, but people who take a whole lot of money and just, shoot it off like it's nothing. And it does not matter what culture. Like that is a symbol of people who have actually arrived and who've made it from a culture that is sick and that continues to support money being a mental illness by encouraging people to publicly act like they don't care about something that is extremely valuable to so many people who don't have it because they worship and idolize it. Because here's the reality. People that have money, they don't think about money as much as people who don't have it. People that don't have money, those are the people who focus on money the most. People that have a lot of money, they don't focus on money as much. But even getting back to the point, you think about how many times, maybe you've seen on social media, or again, if you just Google like making it rain, you're going to see so many different people from so many different cultures doing the money rain dance, if you will, as a symbol that they've arrived, as a symbol that they've made it. And they're communicating that money really does not mean that much to them. Because you think about this, back in the height of COVID, when, for whatever reason, people were just buying toilet paper like it was just, never ever going to be made again. Could you imagine during that time where, people are hoarding rolls of toilet paper and like fighting people at the stores because the shelves are bare and somebody else got the last roll of toilet paper? Can you imagine that during that time, somebody has like hundreds of rolls of toilet paper and they just making it rain like money? Of course not. Because during that time, people showed what was valuable by how they treated it, by how scarce it was, by how much they try to preserve it. And most people don't do that with money. Like, we don't treat it like we treated toilet paper in the height of the pandemic. But when you think about it, in order to obtain toilet paper, you got to spend money for it. But we have this dysfunctional love-hate with money that as soon as and I'm not saying all, because it's not everybody, But most of us have been plagued with this virus on some level at some point in time in our lives or another. But it's one of those things that we desire to have it, but at the same time, we're so uncomfortable having it at the same time, because so often, as soon as we get it, we spend it as soon as it touches our hands. And for some people, they even spend it even before they get it. And here's what I mean by that. So there's been so many people, and if I've asked you this question, I'm not, referring to you, but it's an exercise that I do to try to get people to think about, like, what is something that they really want to do? Like, what would they do, if they had, enough money and they never had to ever work again? And so one of the activities is a question I ask people, if you had $50 million, what would you do with that money? And I'll say this, so many people that I've asked that question to, over the course of like years and years and years, they're broke within 20 seconds. Like they've never had over, $500,000, let alone 50 million. But in less than 20 seconds, they are broke. They have spent $50 million in a matter of 20 seconds. And everything that they say that they would buy with it is something that would never bring them more money. Everything is a liability. Like everything that they said that they would buy with that money is a liability. It's not an asset. Nothing that's going to bring them money. And you think about this. A lot of people are broke in real life because they're broke in their imagination. And the thing that we don't understand is that whatever we imagine, we're going to bring that to real life. And if we're not comfortable with money for whatever reason, we're going to find some kind of way to sabotage ourselves to get back comfortable and get back broke, because that's what so many of us are used to. It's like people are just deceived into thinking that working hard will get you more money. In order for you to have a lot of money, you have to work hard. And that is the furthest thing from the truth, because most people that are broke, they're not lazy. They're some of the hardest working people in the world, but they have such a dysfunction and such a mental illness around money that they find a way to stay broke, and they find a way to stay, in struggle mode and in life, life and death situation, because that's what they've been accustomed to. Like that's the thing that they've seen most of their whole lives. And so many people are uncomfortable with having money because of what other people are going to say about them. Now, believe it or not, there are so many people that could be making a whole lot more money than they're making, but they have something that's called unconscious family loyalties. And here's what that means. That means that unconsciously, they have a loyalty to their family to stay at a certain level. Now, that certain level could be in the area of health. There's a lot of people who, like a lot of people in their family, are overweight. And so in order for them to have a loyalty to their family, they could be going to the gym every day, lose, all of the weight, 6 pounds, muscle, but because of the unconscious loyalty that they have to their family, they stay overweight because this is what they use to connect with their family on. And sometimes in order for people to connect, they have to have visible traumas that both parties can recognize in one another to have that unconscious loyalty that we're both on the same page. And we're both in agreement that we're going to keep this because this is what connects us. It's the same exact thing with money. There are so many people that are broke, that are broken, that are in poverty because they have an unconscious loyalty to their family. And for transparency, that was me for years. I had so much fear that if I made a certain amount of money and a lot of my other family members who I love wasn't making that same amount, that some kind of way that it would hinder our relationship, that it would disconnect us, that they would see me as somebody, who's trying to act better than them, or distance myself from them, or, all of these. And here's the reality. None of my family ever said anything like that to me about that period. This was a story that Chris Cannon created. Like, I'm not putting that on my family whatsoever. we don't realize that perception is reality. And there were so many conversations in my family around money that were so negative that I started to feel like if I make a lot of money, my family, how they talk about money, they're going to just insert me where they put that other wealthy person, or where they put that other person who is very ambitious around money. They're just going to insert me there. And it's like so often, sometimes people don't say it directly, but we just assume what somebody might think based on what they said about somebody else who desires what we're desiring or who obtained what we desire. And so unconscious family loyalties is something that also keeps people stuck in dysfunctional friendships and dysfunctional relationships. Like there are so many people who have been murdered. NFL stars, NBA stars, like MLB stars, like all of these people who've had like these mega successful businesses, because what they do is that they grew up in these, very rough environments. And just so people from their neighborhood don't think that they're acting better than them, or they forgot where they came from, or whatever other label you want to insert there, a lot of these people, they tend to go back and they make themselves vulnerable because they're acting like somebody who's broke when they're really a multimillionaire. And I'm not saying that if you go to any low income neighborhood, you're just going to automatically get robbed. I'm not saying it at all. But I'm just saying from a survival of the fittest perspective. Because I think I'm a person of loyalty. However, if I don't have any money, no resources, my children are hungry, I might do something illegal just for survival, and I don't think I will, but if put in that situation, I might do something illegal just for survival. So I'm saying from that perspective, when you go back to certain neighborhoods where the income level is either low or non-existent, and you're a multi-millionaire, and it's like, even if you try to hide it, it's visible just because of all of the status around you, you're making yourself vulnerable for somebody to take advantage of you. And so many people have put themselves in these situations just to prove to this group of people that they're still down, that they're still one of them, that they didn't leave the hood behind, or they didn't leave their boys behind, or whatever the case may be. And the reality is this: they're not the same person. And that's okay. When you're broke and when you don't have any money, for you to become, a multimillionaire or even make high six figures, you have to become the person who feels they deserve that type of money to even have the ambition, drive, motivation, inspiration to actually go out and make it happen. Because if you don't become that person, you'll never become that person who experiences that reality. So you are different. You think about how ridiculous that is, that people want to demonize you because you've changed. Think about this. When you got a butterfly and a caterpillar, do we expect the caterpillar to stay a caterpillar his whole life? Of course not. We expect it to turn into a butterfly so it can fly. And we don't do the same thing with people. We expect people to be caterpillars their whole lives because we choose to be caterpillars our whole lives. And so we want them to crawl on their bellies and stay stuck in poverty because that's what we choose to do. When somebody wants you to stay broke and you have an opportunity to make a lot more money, that's a mental illness. When you yourself have the ability to make a whole lot of money, but you unconsciously avoid it for the sake of the connections with people who choose to not do better than what they're doing, that's also a mental illness. And it's so important for us to get to the level and the point in our lives where we make it okay to be money. We make it okay to be wealthy, and we don't demonize, multimillionaires and billionaires because we don't have it. And sometimes I really think that a lot of people demonize wealthy people out of jealousy. They want to be in that position. They literally talk about wealthy people as if being wealthy is bad, as if being rich is bad, as if having money is miserable. You think about their songs, more money, more problems. So a lot of us, like we have conditioned ourselves to self-medicate our pain of an empty life by trying to make ourselves feel good because we don't have the money that somebody else has, even though we secretly desire it. So often when people talk about wealthy people, It's because they secretly desire what they have. Because if something just does not matter to you whatsoever, you're not going to give any attention to it whatsoever. Think about when was the last time you complained about yellow shoestrings? It's probably been a long time, if ever, because you don't care about yellow shoestrings. Like, they hold no value, no place in your life at all. So you don't even think about yellow shoestrings. But when it comes to wealthy people in the media, a lot of times people that have a poverty mindset, they root against people with wealth because in their mind, if I bring you down and if you don't have, somehow I'm going to get. Like somehow their wealth is going to just magically appear in your bank account. And it's not going to happen that way. So when you think about somebody who's rooting for somebody else to fall, you have jealousy, anger, bitterness in your heart because of somebody else's success that you desire. And here's the bold truth that a lot of people really miss. There's a lot of miserable wealthy people, and there's a lot of miserable broke people as well. But the difference is this: there's way more broke people that are miserable than there are wealthy people that are miserable. But when it comes to wealthy people being in the news, they're in the news because their status and their money makes them visible. People don't talk or complain about people that are broke and don't have any money because they're irrelevant. And it's the difference between, somebody being viewed, in a negative light and somebody being totally invisible. And sometimes it's better to have negative attention than not having any attention at all when it comes to certain things. And so when it comes to a lot of wealthy people, again, think about what we say about them, and how we feel when something happens, like publicly in the news about them. Like, why do we feel good about the bad things that happen to them? If that is you, maybe that's not you at all. And if you're around people that feels good when something bad happens to them, then guess what? That person being happy for your wealth is non-existent, because guess what? When you get wealthy, when you make a lot of money, they're going to demonize you the same way, because it's not about the person, but it's about them not having what these people have. And if you ever get what that person has up there and these people down here or around you don't have it, they're going to treat you and talk about you and view you the same way that they view them. That is a mental illness. And here's the reality. I want you to really pay attention to the language of the people that you're around. And if they seem like somebody who have hatred and bitterness and jealousy and anger in their heart towards wealthy people, if you have any desire to make more money, be careful of what you share with those people who have revealed who they are based on how they responded to somebody else. Now, if you've gotten any value out of this video whatsoever, you're going to really, really enjoy the video where I talk about how wealthy people think about money. Like, that video is going to be something that you really enjoy, because there are some things in there that I learned 2 weeks before I shot that video, and I study money a lot, that maybe you've never heard before, but I want to encourage you to check it out. And if you also got any value from this video, I want you to give this a likes up, share with at least 3 people, and subscribe.